Hello, my name's Matt Larry. It's September 16th, 2007. I'm here with Mr. Joe Minto to discuss his experiences in World War II. Mr. Minto, thank you for coming in and sharing with us today.
You're welcome.
I would like to start by asking you what you were doing before America became involved in World War II.
Well, I was working for a bakery, Bun Bread, and I had a wholesale bread route. We sold cake and everything pertaining to a bakery. Wholesale.
Did you follow news of the war as it was happening in Europe?
Yes, I did. In fact, right after Pearl Harbor, at that time I was working at the Columbia Record making records. And I went out and listened to Roosevelt's speech declaring war on Japan for what they did to us. And I heard it on the car radio, his speech. But the day of the attack, I was out for a ride in the car. I was expecting company that night for dinner, and a fellow by the name of Bill Morrissey and his wife were going to come over for dinner. And I heard it on the car radio, so I went back home. And when he came in for supper, he said to me, have you heard about the, what the Japs did to Pearl Harbor? And I said, yeah, I heard on the radio this afternoon. He said, I'm going to go down tomorrow to enlist. He said, how about you coming down with me? And I said, it's a little impossible for me to go down. I said, I'm married and I have a daughter. And I said, I won't be able to go down with you. Now, Bill was in the 2nd Division. I said he was my best friend at that time. And he went in D+1. And he got smashed up pretty bad. And he came home and he got cancer, and I assume he got it from his wounds. And he passed away, and I was a pallbearer for him. So I'm glad I didn't go in the first when he wanted me to. So that's all there is on that one, I believe.
When you heard on the news that Pearl Harbor had been attacked by the Japanese, did you know where Pearl Harbor was?
Yes.
And what that really meant?
I knew that I was aware of Pearl Harbor. I knew that our fleet was in there, and they did a job on us. And later on, we did a job on them. That's all I have to say about that.
Before the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in 1940 and earlier in 1941, did you follow the news or try to understand the Battle of Britain and the war going on between the Germans and the British?
Well, I remember when it started. And I have feelings about, I have mixed feelings about Iraq. One of them is, if we stopped Hitler in 1933, we probably wouldn't have had World War II. Now, by going in and stopping Saddam Hussein, we may have prevented a World War III, and we may have created one. I don't know. Time will tell. So that's my opinion on that.
While in America, what were your main sources of news about the war?
Well, I was interested in it, and I followed by way of the newspaper and the radio. TV wasn't even, I guess it was invented, but I never saw it. But I did keep informed on it, and I knew what was going on. But
When did you enter the military, and what were the circumstances?
I went into the service on D-Day, 1944. And I went to basic training down in Camp Landing in Florida, which is a replacement center for infantry. And I was in D Company down there, which is a weapons company. They teach you more about 30 caliber liquid cooled machine guns and mortars, 81 millimeter mortars, but you do have a little training with a rifle, with hand grenades, and the 60 millimeter mortars, because in the service they teach you a little bit of everything. You can be a private today and you can be practically a general tomorrow. So that's all I have to say about that.
Were you drafted into the military?
Yes. Yes, I was, and because my vision was 20/200, my wife was under the impression that I was going to be 4F. When I came back from my physical up in New Haven, and she had a cake already made, she says, happy something, happy 4F Joe. And I said, you better put bad luck on there. I said, because I passed, but they did put on my thing special assignment. And I told them I couldn't see out of one eye and I was blind in the other, and they said, don't worry about it, we'll put you up front and you won't miss anything. And that's what they did. So, next question.
Where did you go after your first round of training?
They gave me a 10-day, what they called delay en route, so that it won't count as a furlough for you. And I had 10 days at home. And from there I had to report to Fort Meade in Maryland. And I was there for about 2 weeks, and I don't know why everybody else was shipping out. And then they shipped me out to, I think it was Camp Lucky Strike or something like that in New Jersey. And from there we boarded the Queen Elizabeth and went overseas.
The luxury liner, the Queen Elizabeth?
It wasn't luxury one. There was 16 in the cabin the size of your bathroom. They converted it over to a troop ship, and all four sides had 4 bunks on each side. In fact, one guy slept in the bathtub because it was more comfortable than the bunks. So, next.
How long was the crossing?
How long was the crossing?
Across
5
the
days.
Atlantic. 5 days.
We went over by ourselves because, the Queen Elizabeth was fast and it could outrun a submarine. So we made it in 5 days. We landed in Glasgow, Scotland. We went over the side in, these nets that they have into smaller boats at Glasgow, Scotland. And we bivouacked overnight in Scotland, and the next day we got on trains and went to Southampton in England, and right after that we went right over.
So you didn't spend much time in England?
The only time I spent in England was I had a 3-day pass one time, and I was in London, and I went to Bath and a few places like that. I didn't see a tremendous amount of London at all. I think I did go to, it may have been in Paris, the Europa Theater, and I saw Jack Benny, Bob Hope, and a few others like that. I don't know whether that was in England or whether it was in Paris. I don't remember. You know, you want to remember this is 63 years ago. So, what's your next question?
Do you recall crossing the channel?
You better believe it.
What were the conditions like?
It was very, very rough. It was very rough. In fact, well, everybody, you know, I've been around the water all my life. I live in Bridgeport, right on Long Island Sound. And it's, you know, I've been around boating all my life. I belong to Pawtucket Yacht Club, and I'm a past Commodore over there. And it didn't bother me, but geez, I'll tell you, those poor kids are sick. Every one of them, I think. You know, when one gets sick, they cause the next guy to get sick. And before you know it, throw out the whole boat. But once you land on shore, it's all over. You know, you're sick today, and an hour from now you're healed. You know, from seasickness. So next.
How did you get ashore onto French soil?
Well, we went over, I don't know the name of the boat, but we went over the side and down, you know, a rope, I call it a ladder, but I don't know what it is. And then they took us into Le Havre in France. And the German signs are still up, you know, how'd they put it, anchorage for boating, you know, so in other words, don't anchor there. And, you know, everything was still in German. So that's about all I have to say about that.
Where did you go once you were ashore?
Well, when I got on shore, they put me in the 40 and 8 trains and boxcars, whatever you want to call them, and they took me to a place called Tyrone in France. And that was a replacement center, or we called it a repo depot. That's where you are assigned to somebody else, you know, some division or some outfit. Now, while I was there, I went to, I was called in by the company commander, the fellows in charge, and he said to me, looking at your records, he said, I understand that you know a little something about machine guns. And I said, yes, I was trained on 30 caliber liquid cooled machine guns. He said, do you know anything about 50 caliber? And I said, I haven't been trained in them, but I said, if I took a look at them, I could let you know whether I could use, you know, do it or not. So he gave me a pass to get out of the place to go across the street, across a lot, I should say. And there was a 50 caliber machine gun was set up for aircraft, really, not for anything else. And I was to live in a tent right not too far away from it, and we had other people other soldiers that were in on it too. And you know, it was a wood burning stove And about 12 o'clock at night, I would go out, we'd wake up in the morning freezing to death. But what can you do? You know, I wasn't by myself. We all froze to death. You know, it was cold. That was the coldest winter I think that Europe had it on record. So that's the next one you want to.
How long did you stay at that facility?
Well, I stayed there until Christmas. And Christmas Day, the company commander called me in and he said, "You're shipping out tomorrow." And he says, "Get everything ready." He said about 8 o'clock in the morning, a truck will pick you up, and you know, they picked up other people with me. And that's when I joined the 44th Division. Now, I don't know whether it took me about a day, I would say, to get to the 44th Division. And then I may have had a day being interviewed or by the company commander. And maybe 1 or 2 days after that, I was online. And then on New Year's, I was only online maybe a day and a half or 2 days when the Battle of the Bulge was already on. As you know, it started the 16th of December and it was over with the 26th of January. And the Germans, when it slowed down up north, they hit us on New Year's Eve. They were all dressed in white. Their helmets are painted white. They had white sheets all over them. And you couldn't see them until they were about 20 feet away. Now, they immediately made me a first gunner. I don't know whether the guys before me got hit and killed or went back to the hospital or what happened. But I do know that I'm estimating I must have went through New Year's Eve. They come over hollering, "Happy New Year, Yankee bastards." And I know that I think I went through about 17 canisters of shells, 150 to a belt. So you can, and then we put the 18th one in, we went through half of that. They told me to, you know, he said, "Stop it, they're all out of the way." So that was my experience in the Battle of the Bulge, mostly, because it was over with not too long after that, about a couple weeks after that, the whole thing was over. We counterattacked and took back what we lost. But we spent a lot of time up in the Vosges Mountains. I don't know whether you're familiar with that or not, but we retook the Maginot Line. And I'll tell you, the Maginot Line, when I first saw what the Maginot Line looked like, you know, the Germans never attacked it from forward. You know, they came in behind it. That's the way they took it. But boy, I'll tell you, they fought for every single foot of that place. I remember we were up at a place called Morrowville Farms, and boy, I'll tell you, I don't know how important that thing was until I got up there, and then I found out that there was a big pillbox behind it. You know, that's what they didn't want us to get at. And boy, they did defend that with and they had good troops up there. They had a lot of SS, and that's the most that I can say, I guess, about that end of it.
Of the German troops that you saw, how would you compare them to American troops by age or health?
Well, when I first went into combat, they were a little bit younger, and they were well trained. They were tough. Don't let anybody kid you that they didn't know what they were doing, and they were well trained. And then as the war went on, we were capturing people 50, 60 years old. You know, Hitler didn't care, you know, how many people got killed as long as he stayed alive and stayed in power. Now, I have a scrapbook home that my wife kept for me. I don't object to you people taking a look at it. I want it back. I just went through it not too long ago, and the pages started to crumble because, 62 years is a long time. So I went up and I spent $100 up in, what's the name of that place?
Orange. Orange.
No, not Orange, up in
Oh, Staples.
Staples. I had it,
Laminated.
laminated. And I still have it at home. And a lot of these things are letters that I wrote home to my wife and my I only had the one kid at the time, but when I went in, see, I was married when I was 20 years old. And I think, well, my daughter was 18 months when I went in the day before my 3rd anniversary. The day before. I was married the 7th of June, and I went in the service the 6th of June, the day before. Now, what else would you like to know?
When did you cross over into Germany?
I couldn't give you the exact date. In fact, when I went up online, I couldn't even give you the town. I didn't even know where I was. They send you up, you don't know, and those towns, they're so small, some of them, that the welcome and leaving sign is back to back. You can't see, you don't know where you're going. A lot of the names sound alike, like Baden, and places like that. But I know that there was an awful cold winter. And I'll tell you, a lot of our company suffered with trench foot. Now, the only reason why I think that I didn't get trench foot myself, I believe that 90% of everything